No, only when something comes out of it. Thank you.
I'm not going to give much of a speech, but I'm going to do some housekeeping to get things going. I'm very pleased with the attendance. 120 people have signed up for the symposium. And we will have a very packed weekend ahead of us. We have a lot to learn about what's going on in Scandinavia, and hope we really get a discussion and exchange of ideas going. This symposium is a part of the Nordic Art Festival, Thing, which has been offering a smorgasbord of cultural events around town all week. And I want to thank the Nordic House for its support for the symposium. This is very much a collaborative project of the Reykjavík Art Museum, the Living Art Museum, and the Center for Icelandic Art. And I want to thank Birta Guðjónsdóttir, Dorothea Kirk, and Sira Sigrún Sigurðardóttir, who are all have been organizing this event with me. We will be discussing here artistic practices, venues for emerging and progressive art, critical discussion, and curatorial practices. And I think that we will get a real fresh understanding of what is happening around us. It's my hope. And one other thing that we'll, of course, be discussing, I count on it, the title, whether it, what North means and what alternative means really, if it means anything, or whether it really matters. The whole symposium will be recorded and put on podcast because we really believe that this has a significance beyond these walls. So it will be, anyone will be able to access it from wherever. And I want to, I feel we are very lucky to be able to go from this information to start a discussion with an artist who has been the subject of great and good discussion and glowing reviews for her installation in New York at the Metropolitan Museum of Art, including a review by Ken Johnson and New York Times recently. I realize that New York is not one of the Nordic countries, but the spirit here is ignoring boundaries. So Katrín Sigurðardóttir, she's going to say a few words. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Hafþór. And just to make a note on what you just said, Manhattan is there is a Scandinavia in Manhattan and Nordic region in Manhattan, and it's an island which brings together everyone, and it's wonderful for Iceland to have a little place there as well. And I feel very much a representative of everyone here when I with this exhibition, and just I'm very thankful. I'm thankful to everyone who has helped me make this work. So I'm happy to be here specifically tonight to speak at this at the beginning of this symposium. I'm happy to have an opportunity to intersect with all the esteemed guests, and especially glad to see that I know some people in the group. Iceland is an intersection point, not simply a place called home, but also a central point in a diaspora of Icelandic artists living abroad. It's an axis of culture and art that we sometimes label Icelandic, but it's not necessarily produced or practiced strictly within the boundary of Iceland. Likewise, non-Icelanders touch down on their transatlantic journeys and take part in the art scene here in a multitude of ways. Iceland is a bit of a hub in this sense, although being situated in the middle of the Atlantic, it's also a traffic stop, and the art scene here has by and large developed through taking advantage of this drift of talent to and from the island. Furthermore, you could say that Iceland is a bottleneck because Reykjavík is such a small place. All its guests and inhabitants are pushed together, so it's almost inevitable that you run into your friends and acquaintances, be they stationary or just passing through. In my instance, part of the reason that I happen to be in Iceland right now is to meet with my colleagues at the Art Academy, and I think that there's a good representation of our school here in the audience tonight. Historically, the school has taken advantage again of the stopover crowd and built a program of short, intensive workshops rather than semester-long courses. The curriculum has been designed to accommodate the many short-term visitors that we have in Iceland, and through the years, this has created a very unique and strong art program at the school. Isolation is a topic in Iceland, and now when funding for travel and transport is sometimes sparse, it becomes even more of an urgent issue. I expect that many of us in this room have grown up in the small, solitary and remote art venues, making self-promoted and self-produced projects. At least I think this is the case for most Icelandic artists and curators. Thankfully, I think we live in a time where there's been a renewed appreciation of artist initiatives, ground-up projects, and increased interest in local activities versus a global fine art industry. Increasingly, viewing shows in the world's most heavily trafficked museums in the big cities resembles the experience of chain malls. Furthermore, to produce art as a leisure for luxury tourism is in my mind deadening for the artist, and not an objective to be sought out unless as a critique of this practice or construct. As I think is so often the case, people don't realize the treasure that they're sitting on or the full potential of this treasure until they have a larger context to compare it with. Public funding for art is part of our social infrastructure in the Nordic countries that we are now fighting to keep. As we make alliances with institutions and individuals in order to finance and support our work, we must fight the pull to offer our art as a commodity or advertisement in national marketing campaigns. We must resist being used as national symbols, specimens, or entertainment in international relations and diplomacy. And at last but not least, we must not offer our work to soften or whitewash the private or corporate profits of those who have systematically exploited our resources. In the recent socioeconomic developments in Iceland, a lot of empty space has emerged. What I mean by empty space is not simply what the term literally implies, but also a vacuum of meaning and logic, a vacuum of function and purpose. I think this is more motivating than challenging, and I hope and more hope-giving than frightening. I am talking about a void of meaning that can only be dealt with through creative practices, or emptiness that can only be transformed through art. Maybe because history traces art's path through the epicenters of money and political power, it is easy to forget that a socio-economical eclipse, as we have recently experienced in Iceland, carries with it an incredible gift, and I might even be old-fashioned and say a mission. How to make meaning out of absurdity, how to subvert the already subverted, and what to do with thoroughly collapsed values. I believe that there are really no limits to how this can be done and which form it might take. It's my hope and expectation that this weekend our guests will get a good insight into how this is already being accomplished in Iceland. Thank you.
Góða kvöldið, góð afton, gott kvöld, good evening. Just a few words in English. I've been having a bloody good day, and I've had past few weeks bloody good. I have had the task of trying to look at the finance of the city and trying to figure out how we can maintain support for culture in Reykjavík. I've come down to a certain term, which is borgarmenning or borgarlist, borgarlist sig, borgarmenning sig. And this is, I say this in Icelandic because I spoke to our honorable visitors earlier and they know what I'm talking about. But does city culture pay or borgarmenning sig? So we are dealing with, at the moment, trying to figure out this way of maintaining a cultural status, of working monies into the culture, because without culture, Reykjavík wouldn't be anything. Reykjavík would be lost and we would only get bloody Gullfoss. Having said that, then I find this symposium very interesting because I think sharing is caring. And so the ideas that will float here will continue to float and be shared with everybody participating in the symposium, and something, connections, ideas will float around. And I think it's a brilliant idea that my bit is not recorded for the podcast, but the rest of the symposium is recorded for the podcast so I can watch it in whole at my own leisure. So welcome again, everybody. Velkomin öll. Gjörið svo vel.